Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are listening to The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. Time to join the conversation.
Hey, everybody. It's Friday, February 22nd, 2019, and this is The Right of the People. First off, before we even go anywhere else, I want to thank everybody for coming by today, as always. Humbled and amazed that any of you want to spend any time at all listening to me blather on. I think it's great. Out on the YouTube side so far, we have Grim, The Poor Conservative, Slim, which I think is a new one on me. I don't recognize that name. Well, I hope you stick around. Hope you like what you see. If you're not familiar with the show, we present Second Amendment news and current events, and then discuss it among the panel. And you folks out there in the chat, feel free to chime in. If I'm not covering it, the guys on the panel are. We are simulcast on gun channels. If you're not a gun channels member, you might want to think about becoming one. It is absolutely free. It is the water cooler of the internet Second Amendment community. You can find someone to talk with and something to talk about 24/7, 365. They never shut down. So go over there and check it out. You do not have to be a content creator to be a member over there. Anybody can be. You know, it's community for us. So we got Gun Loving Grandpa Stanley, Mateo 1371. John Brown Productions. So, hello. Oh, Slim's a new guy from Kentucky. Good. Well, I'm glad to see you. Here on the panel, we have the Kingpin himself, David Bowling. How you doing, sir?
Not too shabby. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem, man. Always glad to have you. Squib, how are you, sir?
Doing all right. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, no problem. Same thing, man. Always glad to have you. So this week there's been a couple things that have happened, obviously, or I wouldn't be talking about them, right? Police department in Oregon made a social media post thanking Benchmade knives for assisting them in destroying some seized or evidence firearms. Let me go ahead and read a piece from Breitbart, and we'll talk about this a little bit. Benchmade Knife Company helps Oregon City Police destroy firearms. In a social media post that has since been removed, the Oregon City Police wrote, "Thank you, Benchmade Knife Company, for assisting us today by cutting up guns that are ready to be destroyed. The backlash against Benchmade's willingness to cut up firearms was intense, and the Oregon City Police used a Facebook post to try to quell the public's outrage." Quote, "We understand some of our followers are upset with Benchmade knives because of a recent post we put out. The post did not give everyone the full story on why the guns were required to be destroyed. We receive guns that are turned in from community members that they no longer want the guns and want them destroyed. We also have guns that are evidence, and when a case is adjudicated, the guns are ordered by the court to be destroyed. These guns were required to be destroyed. We reached out to Benchmade to do us a favor at our request. Benchmade is a strong supporter of law enforcement and the Oregon City community. We were present when the guns were cut, and we took them for final destruction. The Firearms Policy Coalition is requesting that the Oregon City Police turn over records about the destruction of the firearms from July 1st, 2018 to the present. FPC is also requesting the police department turn over all records that are, relate, or refer to communications with, to, or from Benchmade for the same period. Benchmade also released a statement. This is their statement that they put out via their Facebook. Benchmade is aware of the recent post from our local Oregon City Police Department. We apologize for the confusion and concern that this post created. These were firearms that the Oregon City Police Department had to destroy in alignment with their policies. Oregon City Police requested the use of specialty equipment within the Benchmade facility to follow these requirements, and as a supporting partner of our local police force, we obliged the request. Benchmade is a proud and unwavering supporter of both law enforcement and Second Amendment rights. These are commitments that we do not take lightly and will continue to support well into the future. When asked for clarity from Oregon City Police Department, Chief Jim Brand made the following statement. When property is to be destroyed, it is the policy of the Oregon City Police Department to destroy property, including firearms, in accordance to our procedures and ORS. The Oregon City Police Department does not sell firearms. Well, I would say that, number one, that specialty equipment could be a cutting torch and or an angle grinder. And if this is something that the police department is required to do on a regular basis, then I would suggest that maybe they spend some seized drug money or something and buy a chop saw so that they can do this themselves if they're ordered to do it by the court. You know, if the court orders it, they're kind of stuck. They have to do it. I get that. My point, though, is that Benchmade didn't have to say yes to do this. I have to think that if it were me and I owned a business that had that sort of equipment and the police department asked me to help them destroy some firearms, I would refuse to do it. I would decline their request. Even if I agreed with them, you know, I would have to say no simply because of the public backlash. You know, that would be the smart thing. But you know, there are some concerns as to whether or not Benchmade goes down the anti-gun path anyway. So let's take a look at some information that's been brought to light from opensecrets.org. Being Benchmade's political contributions. In 2018, so far, well, in 2018, not so far, in 2018, Benchmade made political donations to two politicians, Kurt Schrader, Democrat, Oregon, and Martin Heinrich, Democrat, New Mexico. They gave Schrader $5,200 and Heinrich $2,700. In 2016, they gave $9,500 to Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon. And again, Kurt Schrader, they gave him $5,200. In 2014, they gave $5,200 to Mark Udall, a Democrat from Colorado. They gave, again, Kurt Schrader. They must really like this guy. They gave him $1,000. And they gave Jeff Merkley, a Democrat from Oregon, $500. I was looking and I looked long and hard for information from, say, Spyderco or Gerber or other knife makers, and I really couldn't find any information. Any information on any political donations from Spyderco, but I did get information from Smith & Wesson. And let's see, in 2018, they gave $2,700 to Richard Hudson, Republican, North Carolina, $2,000 to Roy Blunt, Republican, Missouri, $2,000 to John Culberson, Republican, Texas, $2,000 to Martha McSally, Republican, Arizona, $2,000 to Bruce Poliquin, Republican, Maine, $2,000 to Luther Strange, Republican, Alabama, $1,000 to Robert Adderholt, Republican, Alabama, $1,000 to Steve Chabot here in wonderful Ohio, and he is a Republican. Here we hit the first Democrat. They gave $1,000 to Henry Kuehler, Democrat, Texas, $1,000 to and on and on and on. You know, the list is Republican, Republican, Republican. Let's see. They also gave to a Democrat from Massachusetts, and let's see. Good Lord. Another Democrat from California, and about 20 Republicans in 2018. And the list for 2016 is similar. The list from actually the list from 2016 is longer, and the list from 2014 is just about what you would say. The vast majority would be Republican politicians, while giving very few to Democrats. Now, the thing to look at is the votes, the voting records of these people, and some of the Democrats that Benchmade gave to, they have made a pro-gun votes on issues that weren't going to pass, but the vast majority of their votes have been anti-gun. So, there are those that are going to tell you that all companies give money to both sides of the aisle. It's just smart business because you might need a zoning variance here or something else there that these politicians can assist you with, and I can understand that. But again, it all circles back to, for me, Benchmade didn't have to do what they did. They didn't have to actively support this policy of destroying these guns instead of selling them, back into the general public. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Kingpin, what do you think? Benchmade, anti-gun, not anti-gun, meh, big deal?
I would say meh, but not big deal. I'd say that they don't care either way. They only care about, their bottom line. And they couldn't care less. If every gun owner in America never buys another Benchmade, they'll be all right. Because there's plenty of fishermen out there. There's plenty of other, survival type of people out there that still buy their stuff and they pay a premium for it. I think that they're foul. And my reasoning comes from more than just the firearms thing. If you vote for a Democrat, then you're not on my team. And believe me, everybody's heard me say the Republicans are nasty too, and I hate all the Republicans. But there's not one single Democratic platform, position, or ideal that I can support. And any company that supports helping Democrats get in the office would never get any money from me. Not that I could afford Benchmade anyway.
What about you, Squib? What's your take on all this?
So I've watched 3 videos on it. One of them was very well done, and I know there's people out there who don't like this channel, but quit yelling and calm down and try to look at things objectively, and you might see that the videos they produce are actually pretty good. And that's TGC, the gun collective. And a lot of people, they're shills or this or that, whatever. There was a time where I didn't even like them, but I kept listening, and I finally got through all that and realized that they actually bring very complete, concise information. They follow up on stuff whenever they can, and they show both sides. And they're pro-gun. Don't get me wrong, but they also don't. There's a lot of people who read the headline, jump to conclusion. They're making a video, and next thing you know, 150 other people are parroting them, going this, that, and the other, and they're not reading the meat and potatoes of what happened. So sure. I would recommend anybody who wants to get a better idea of this, and like what you were talking about, how they might support these politicians because they might need a zoning variance. It's very good that you explain that, because not enough people are explaining why some of these companies might do what they do, or some people might do what they do, and I'm glad that you're being objective, just like TGC. That being said, the policy of the police department is to destroy these guns for whatever reason, whether it's a court order, which they cannot tell the judge, go F yourself, okay? So if they've got a court order, that's one thing. If it's been in the evidence locker too long and nobody's claimed it, if somebody's brought it to them or asked them to remove it from their house because they want it gone, because they're scared crapless of guns or whatever it is. If somebody found one, whatever it is that they've got these guns in their possession, they may let these build up, and at a certain point, they've got to go, all right, we've got to clear out our inventory. As long as it's not an ongoing investigation or there's any other thing that's keeping them from disposing of it, if their policy is to not sell them, then they're going to not sell them. And if these aren't something they can reissue to their officers or a UC or something like that, then they're going to destroy them. I don't have an issue with that. I don't like to see guns destroyed at all. I absolutely do not. And I think it's stupid of them to do it because they could sell them and make money. At the very least, they could strip them for parts and sell the parts. I bet you Numrich would work out something really good with all these police departments and buy, you know, everything but the receiver, everything but the serialized part off the gun. And, you know, when you need a used firearm part for your old gun, here it is, right? So there are ways, and there are places like Arizona, as far as I know, has a law that says they can't destroy the guns. They have to sell them and put the money back into the police department. Well, just because they do it in Arizona don't mean they got to do it in Oregon or Oregon City or whatever this place is, right? So I don't have an issue with that. If people don't like that, then whoever can influence the police department or the state government or whoever it is that implemented this rule that they have to destroy them, that's where you need to go. Is you need to get that changed, that policy changed. Now, as far as Benchmade helping them out, I think Benchmade probably did it as a PR move, and they didn't think. They had their head in their butt. Mr. Joe Blow executive, communications guy, PR guy, whatever, said, this is a great idea, we're helping LEO. And it sounded, but they're probably one of those people that guns is not on their radar at all. And like David said, Benchmade don't care if gun owners buy their product or not. They should, but they don't, because there's plenty of people out there that are going to buy them that are not necessarily gun guys. And also, there are plenty of gun guys out there that have no clue because they have their head in the sand, or they go, well, I love Benchmade, I'm not giving it up. And that's, hey, you know what? It's a free country, that's your choice. But overall, I think it's good if the community, even if it's for the wrong reason, unfortunately, shuns Benchmade to make an example out of them. It's the same thing with Rock River Arms and Springfield Armory. If you brought their product before they worked out that deal with the state of Illinois, I don't see any problem with it. I've got Rock River Arms spare parts for AR-15s. I bought them years and years ago. I'm not throwing them away because they decided to crawl in bed with the anti-gun government. But if you buy their product after the fact, you're telling them that it's okay. And some people go, well, no, it's already owned by the store, and I'm giving my money to the store. No, you're giving your money to Rock River Arms and Springfield Armory by buying it new, okay? Used is different. If you've already owned it, and once again, it's a free country. If you go, well, I'm not into boycotting, or I love their products, so I'm not, okay, do what you want, dude. But here's the thing. If as a community, every time we catch one of these companies doing something that affects us or that hurts the Second Amendment, or it's just something that we just don't agree with. Now, and I think we need to be objective too. But as long as we do, we are sending a message. We are a force to be reckoned with. If we can't convince the politicians that there's enough of us out there that they should be worried about what they do to our freedom, then let's convince the companies out there. And maybe this doesn't affect Benchmade's bottom line, but somewhere along the line, it's going to get recognized. It's going to get noticed. There are people that are still mad at Bill Ruger, rest his soul, for what he said back in the 1990s to Congress about magazine limitations. And I don't necessarily agree with that because the company has moved on and changed and blah, blah, blah. But once again, it's a free country. If you still want to have a red ass over that, fine. You're voting with your wallet, and I think that's a good thing. That's capitalist. That's America. That's a good thing. But I think that some of the videos that I saw or some of the reactions that I've heard so far have been short-sighted. I think you need to try to get as much information as possible before you start running your mouth and your fans start repeating what you say, and it just snowballs. It's like that message that goes around the room. It starts off as one thing, and by the time it gets to the 30th person, it's entirely different. And as a community that's trying to maintain our freedoms, we have to be careful about every step we take. Sometimes it's a good thing to use the same tactics as our enemy, and other times it's better to take the high ground. So
let me throw this one out there as a bit of a, and this is totally just for topic of conversation. What if this was just a way to set Benchmade up? Because anybody who's ever been to a scrapyard, at least any kind of industrial scrapyard, they got that barrel with the giant teeth in there, and you throw your washing machine in, and it grinds the washing machine up into a bunch of little pieces. You could throw your guns in there and destroy them, and do it at a state run or county run facility. You didn't have to go to Benchmade and have them use a saw and cut the guns up and take pictures of it. That's and I know that's totally tinfoil hatty, but there's other ways that they could have had it done.
No, I don't think it's a way to set up Benchmade. And yeah, you're right. There are actually, I'm cleaning a machine right now that could do that. The kind of machine you're describing, I'm cleaning a small scale version of that machine. So yeah, they exist. And the whole thing about the police department, if they've got to do this on a regular basis, why don't they invest money in equipment? Budget may be tight, but if anybody who says, one guy said, you could just do it with a hacksaw. Dude, if you got 500 guns and you got 2 cops and a hacksaw, you're going to be paying a lot of overtime. All right? Just because you bubbaed your Mosin with a hacksaw doesn't mean that chopping up dozens or hundreds of guns with one is going to, and a chop saw, yeah, that's under $1,000. A acetylene torch is under $1,000. Or going to the scrapyard, they may have actually wanted to witness each individual one get cut to a certain point to ATF standard to render it, and they may have to actually document that. I know that when for the business I used to work for, we had the shred it truck come, and we bring the banker boxes out. We would verify what's in the banker boxes, and then the girl would stand there with a clipboard and actually watch the guy throw each banker box into the, and had to check it off as it went, and couldn't just go, okay, he's got this whole pile of things, I'm just going to walk away. She'd sometimes stand out there in the cold. Because
I'm absolutely sure their policies called for it to be documented, each individual one.
So doing it en masse, it may not work that well, but you bring up a good point, though, David. You absolutely do bring up a good point.
Go to Harbor Freight and get a chop saw. It's not that expensive. It really, it isn't. And I don't know. I think
them using Benchmade
for doing it.
But them using Benchmade's equipment to do it because they think they might be saving the taxpayers money or because their budget is tight, that's not out of the realm of possibility. It's no different than if they wanted to do
I understand why the police...
let's say they wanted to do an active threat drill training with their SWAT team, and they wanted to use Benchmade's factory. And Benchmade said, come on in, we'll do the training, blah, blah, blah. It would be no different than that, really, honestly.
No, I understand it from the police department's perspective of not wanting to spend the money on it, et cetera, et cetera. However, to me, it just keeps circling back to Benchmade's decision to do this. I mean, they didn't have to. There's nothing saying, there's no law, there's no court order in existence that says Benchmade must assist the police department in chopping this crap up. And to me, it just seems like a very short-sighted, stupid business decision to do that and allow it to have pictures taken and whatnot and put on social media. It just baffles me why anyone would do that.
No, they did it because they thought
you're going to get.
I don't think they did. I don't think they realized the backlash. Like I said, I think the communications guy that said, this is going to make a great story and going to make us look like we support law enforcement is probably not a gun guy at all and didn't have a clue. If Benchmade wants to fix this, honestly, now TGC says they're going to have their PR people make this stuff go away, and that's actually a way to deal with problems like this. And it's like, yeah, that's true. That is very true. But really, if they wanted to do something, I would say send a bunch of money to gun rights groups. More than likely, though, if they did that, they'd go, well, the NRA, because they don't know any other ones. And I think what they would need to do is really send money to multiple groups and then come out with a public statement saying that we thought we were supporting law enforcement. We didn't realize that this many people were this upset about it. We will never, ever do this. You know what I mean? But I doubt they'll do that, honestly.
Yeah. Vanessa Kitty asked, would you help your police department with business resources if they came and asked you? Not if it was to destroy firearms. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it just from a personal conviction standpoint. I couldn't, because I don't believe that they should be destroyed. I believe they should be resold to gun dealers at auction to get as much money as that they could get for the police department, and then that money
And look,
used to benefit the law enforcement programs.
when they confiscate vehicles, whether the vehicles are broken down, got bullet holes in them, or had a dead body in the trunk, just like Squibb said earlier, as soon as the case is done and you can get rid of the evidence by law, like you no longer have to hold the evidence for appeals and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with houses, the money that they confiscate, all the other stuff that the police confiscate or the government confiscate from quote unquote bad guys. They don't destroy none of that. Like they're not going down and burning El Chapo's house down. They're going to sell that to somebody. They're all the cars that they've taken from them. They're not going to compact all those cars. They're going to sell them to somebody. The reason, and that's where another thing, Benchmade made a mistake. And I agree with Squibb that they probably thought, oh, this is going to look great. We're supporting our police officers. But they didn't see that none of the other property, now drugs is a whole different story, but none of the other personal property gets destroyed. It doesn't happen. And Benchmade should have known that.
But just because this is a good idea, or just because this
does bring up a good point. He says that point made by Rich White: if the guns have serial numbers removed, then those can't be resold.
I didn't say serial numbers removed. I said
that's a different story. That's you know,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
They can't be resold. Well, yeah, then maybe they would have to be destroyed and chopped up and the parts sold. That would be all right.
Okay, well, how come when somebody takes a VIN number off of a car and uses it to commit a crime, they don't destroy those cars?
You can get a new VIN number. I don't know if you can get a new serial number for a firearm.
There's probably a way to do it. Look, here's the thing. Just because it's a great idea and just because other departments have that policy doesn't mean that you need to blame Benchmade for this, though. Yeah. Whoever sets the policy for the department, if it's the chief of police,
I don't take fault with Benchmade for the policy that the police department has or that the court order. I give fault to Benchmade for making the decision to assist in it. Vanessa Kitty asked, what about the firearms that are used in murders? And I say, what about them? You know, just like anything else, you know, it's just a tool. I don't care what it was used for. It's just a tool. Has no blame in and of itself. And when they sell these firearms at auction, who are doing these background checks? Well, if they sell them to dealers at auction, that's a different story.
I have gone down to the police department and signed for, collected a gun of ours that was used in a crime. It was stolen, it was used in a crime, and I went and got it. I was surprised that they actually let me have it and that it was still in working condition and everything else, because I've heard all kinds of horror stories about things ending up missing or delays or whatever it was. When everything was said and done and this guy was put away and it was all good to go, went, signed for it, picked it up in a cardboard box. It was zip tied in there with the ammunition in there and everything. And what we decided to do with it was take it down to one of our FFLs and trade it in as credit on a new purchase. Yeah. We didn't want it anymore because of what had happened with it and what it symbolized, but we didn't think that it was a bad idea or it was a good idea to destroy it or whatever. We thought somebody else might want this, and because I had signed for it and taken custody of it again, it was more or less, it would show up that it was used in a crime, but that it was returned to its rightful owner. You know what I mean? Yeah. So at some point, somebody got a really nice Colt revolver and has no idea that it was used in a crime. So.
Well, bottom line is we all got to make this decision for ourselves, whether we're going to hold Benchmade to fault and at what level and what we decide we're going to do about it. Honestly, I was never going to buy a Benchmade knife anyway, so it really doesn't have any effect on me. You know, I think they're overpriced. And yeah, bottom line for me is I have to agree with outside the target demographic, which, welcome to the show, because I know I've never seen that name before. Says, I don't know that Benchmade was in the wrong. But boy, did they F up the optics here. Yes. Yes, they did. In other news, Democrats reject push to alert ICE when illegal immigrants fail firearm background checks. This is a piece by Fox News. Democrats this week approved legislation to require background checks for essentially all sales and transfers of firearms, but rejected GOP-led efforts to amend the legislation to alert law enforcement authorities when gun buyers, including illegal immigrants, fail those background checks. The House Judiciary Committee voted in favor of the bill 23-15 in a strict party line vote, sending it to the House floor. If approved by the full House, the bill would be the most significant gun control legislation approved by either chamber of Congress in at least a decade, although it stands little chance of passage in the Senate, where Republicans command a slim majority. Republicans in the House charged that H.R. 8, known as the Bipartisan Background Checks Act of 2019, should have included Florida Representative Greg Steub's proposed amendment to require that law enforcement be notified when an individual attempting to purchase a firearm fails a federal background check. H.R. 8 was numbered in honor of former Arizona Representative Gabby Giffords, who was shot in Arizona on January 8, 2011 by a mentally ill gunman. Clearly, the Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee don't care about preventing gun violence. They simply are playing politics with Americans' Second Amendment rights, Steub, a Republican, said after the vote. The fact that Democrats do not want law enforcement notified if an individual attempting to purchase a firearm fails a background check is truly troubling. He continued, in rejecting this amendment, the Democrats have shown their true colors. It is clear they are not interested in preventing gun violence or stopping the illegal purchase of firearms, but rather they are only interested in limiting the rights of law-abiding citizens to advance their own political agenda. Wednesday's vote came a day before the one-year anniversary of the high school shooting at Parkland, Florida, that killed 17 people. However, Steub dismissed arguments that the massacre necessitated the new legislation. As written now, H.R. 8 would not have prevented any of the mass shootings in Florida in recent years, Steub's office said in a press release. The shooter in Parkland passed a background check before purchasing a firearm. The shooter at Pulse nightclub passed a background check before purchasing a firearm. And the shooter just weeks ago that murdered 5 women in District 17 passed a background check before purchasing a handgun he used in the commission of that heinous crime. And it goes on to talk about about universal background checks so much. But let's see, where's that? Yeah, the same usual hyperbole and rhetoric. Other than, I think that they wanted to insert this amendment in here as a poison pill to the bill because they knew that the Democrats would not support notifying ICE when an illegal tried to buy a gun. So there you go. They tried and failed to insert that amendment. The Dems would have none of it. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead and vote Democrat. Go ahead. You hate Trump. Trump took our bump stock away, so I'm going to vote Democrat. Help yourself. Help yourself. Those man. I'm not going to be the wound up guy this week, but
are you sure?
I'm working on it. I try to stay rated G as much as I possibly can, but
and I appreciate that.
I'm absolutely sick and tired of this, and I challenge anybody who's listening to this now, listening to this on replay. If you can name one single Democrat policy that you'd vote for, I'll pop up in a live stream and we can debate all you want. And then for everybody out there who thinks they're going to vote for third party, and I've already said it before and I've already made it quite clear, the Republicans aren't on our side either. But you have to vote for the Republicans because we can at least push them around a little bit. Independents are only Democrats. Democrats are Satan. Every single one of them. If you want to kill babies, go ahead and vote for a Democrat. If you want to lose all your rights, go ahead and vote for a Democrat. Every single day, all day, every day, these nasty, rotten Democrats give another reason why they should not be anywhere near power. So if you vote for them, you're killing yourself. And
Okay, then.
I'm not calling anybody out directly. I'm just saying because I'm sure most people, at least that hang around gun channels, have got a brain in their head and they can see this kind of stuff. This right here, not wanting to have the illegal immigrants turned in for trying to buy a firearm, if that right there doesn't show that they don't give a crap about the American citizen, and this is all about control, power, and pushing their communist. It's not, Bernie Sanders is not a socialist. AOC is not a socialist. They are communist. And too many people died from this country fighting the communists to let communists take over our country. So go ahead and pull the lever for Bernie Sanders if you want, because you think he's going to give you free college, and your free college is going to suck because the education is going to suck, and you think he's going to give you free health care. I blew out my back last week, and I called my insurance company. The closest hospital, doctor's office that would take me said 2 weeks. The one that's another 5 minutes down the road said 2 months. There you go. Ask anybody that's been in the VA system what they think about socialized healthcare. Go ahead and vote for them, and then dig a grave and lay in it until you die, because that's exactly what's going to happen.
Ask somebody from England how much they pay in income taxes and how long they have to wait. It's even longer than that over there in England. But oh, it's free. It's free. 52% income taxes? That's nuts.
Yeah,
Budget says
nothing's
the best
free.
every week. Every week, as far as I've known him, he's always said it. Every chance he gets, it's not about guns, it's about control. None of this is about guns. Not one bit of
Not
it
a
is
bit.
about guns. They only care about guns because that's a tool that we hold on to and we can defend ourselves with. As soon as they get rid of guns, look, they're already getting rid of, like Squib said, no sharp knives, no baseball bats in England. They want your speech. They want your speech. They don't care about your gun. They can
Do you know
get
why
your
they hate
speech
our guns?
because it allows us to do this. It allows us to sit here and talk and say how foul and rotten our government is, because if they come here and give us any trouble, I've got something to defend myself with.
They hate our guns because our guns prevent their control. That's why they hate them. They hate the fact that we're armed because of that. Matter of fact, I might have to make that into a t-shirt. Our guns prevent their control. I like that. All right. Let's go ahead and move into some more positive news. Now that we got all that negativity out of the way. Are you okay now, David? You feel a little better?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel really good, man. Thanks for having me.
Ashley at Gunstreamer was out there like, oh no, he's tapping.
I could flip out for a little bit longer.
That was the best wound up sumbitch I've ever heard without all the cussing and stuff. So good for you.
Yeah, I could flip out for the rest of the night and not have to use foul language and not have to insult anybody. But, you know, we got a show to do here.
Good. All right. In better news, piece in Breitbart, over 92% of NRA members oppose criminalizing private gun sales. Over 92% of NRA members oppose criminalizing private gun sales via universal background checks. This news runs counter to the myriad leftist claims that the NRA overwhelmingly supports the same draconian gun controls currently being pushed by House Democrats. Writing in Emoland, former NRA President Marion Hammer explains that the views of the NRA members are actually 180 degrees removed from those of the House Democrats and their surrogates in the gun control groups around the country. For example, Hammer notes that over 92% oppose background checks on sales between private citizens. Such opposition is based on the fact that nearly every mass shooter, high-profile attacker of the 21st century acquired their guns via background checks. The exceptions are those who stole their guns. Therefore, requiring background checks on private sales would do little more than criminalize a friend selling a gun to a lifelong friend, or a neighbor selling a gun to someone who he has lived with, beside whom he has lived for decades. Hammer also explains that 89% of NRA members oppose banning so-called assault weapons and 93% oppose gun registration. Democrats in the House are currently pushing universal background checks, which will require gun registration in order to be enforceable. And Democrats in the Senate are currently pushing a ban on assault weapons. These pushes do not reflect the values or desires of NRA members. Let's see. Yes, the tactical pickle says if they oppose them, then maybe they shouldn't support an organization that supports these background checks. Yeah, I don't know. They're that's a whole nother show in and of itself. Whether or not to support the NRA, et cetera, et cetera. And I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole tonight. I've got like 15 minutes left and I got to get ready for work tonight. So yeah, we're not going to go down that one tonight, but that may be something we can tackle later. Let's see. 8 attorneys general to SCOTUS. Second Amendment protects suppressors too. Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt led 7 other attorneys general in an amicus brief to the Supreme Court of the United States, contending that the Second Amendment protects suppressors too. The 7 other AGs represent the states of Arkansas, Idaho, Louisiana, Montana, South Carolina, Texas, and Utah. They're asking SCOTUS to review a United States Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit decision that held that firearm accessories fall outside the scope of Second Amendment protections. The 10th Circuit specifically ruled that Jeremy Kettler could not be granted relief for being trapped between federal law and Kansas law regarding possession of an unregistered firearm suppressor. They reached their finding in part by ruling that suppressors are not protected under District of Columbia versus Heller because they are not, quote unquote, bearable. The 10th Circuit explained, a silencer is a firearm accessory. It's not a weapon in itself, nor is it armor of defense. Accordingly, it can't be a bearable arm protected by the Second Amendment. The AGs are asking SCOTUS to reverse that ruling. Their amicus brief states, the undersigned AGs have a strong interest in protecting their citizens' Second Amendment rights to keep and bear arms. Indeed, the lawful use of firearms, including for hunting or recreational shooting, is a venerable tradition in many amici. I think that's how that would be pronounced. Amici states. That would be the states of the attorneys general who are filing the amicus brief. This is especially true in Kansas, where its citizens recently and overwhelmingly voted to amend the state's constitution to reaffirm that an individual has the right to keep and bear arms for the defense of self, family, home, and state, for lawful hunting and recreational use, and for any other lawful purpose. Kansas Constitution, Bill of Rights, and the right to hunt by the use of traditional methods, and the 10th Circuit's unsupported conclusion that firearm accessories are categorically excluded from the Second Amendment protection threatens the citizens' rights to enjoy these same time-honored pursuits. The attorneys general argue, in holding that firearms accessories are categorically excluded from the Second Amendment's protections, the 10th Circuit improperly narrowed the scope of that important amendment in conflict with the decisions of this court and other courts. This court's review is needed to affirm that the arms protected by the Second Amendment include items such as silencers and other firearms accessories. SCOTUS has yet to decide whether to review the 10th Circuit ruling. A decision on whether to hear the case is expected in the coming months. And the case is Kettler versus United States, number 18-936, Supreme Court of the United States. So let's keep an eye on that one. I think that, that Kettler case is interesting because of the conflict of state law versus federal law and which one is supreme, as well as the Second Amendment issues involved in this very thing, in declaring that certain classes of accessories are not covered by the Second Amendment. The 10th Circuit did take a lot on themselves by narrowing the scope of a constitutional right. So it'll be interesting to see if the court takes this one, and then if they do, what they decide on it.
Real quick out in the YouTube chat, Green Badger Outdoors makes a pretty good point. He says, if firearms were invented today, suppressors would be a mandatory safety accessory.
Yeah, I have no doubt of that, and they should be. Honestly, I don't know about mandatory, but it should absolutely be heavily encouraged that you have a suppressor as a safety accessory to protect your hearing. And all these neighbors that complain about shooting at however many hours that you want to shoot and whatever time you want to shoot and however long you want to shoot, well, that would kind of solve that problem, wouldn't it? And finally, for the main stories, there's good news for you Kentuckians. The Kentucky Senate, the Second Amendment is your concealed carry permit. The Kentucky Senate passed a bill late last week to eliminate the state's concealed carry permit requirement. The bill, SB 150, now heads to the Kentucky House. The NRA ILA reports that SB 150 is sponsored by Senator Brandon Smith, and it passed the Senate by a vote of 29-8. WBKO reports that the text of Senate Bill 150 makes clear the bill is designed to allow concealed deadly weapons to be carried by persons aged 21 and over without a license in same locations where concealed carry license holders may carry them. On January 31st, 2019, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem signed legislation to end her state's concealed carry permit requirement. In so doing, she made South Dakota the 14th state to recognize the Second Amendment as a sufficient carry permit. Kentucky is now vying to be the 15th state to do away with any requirement to obtain government permission before exercising the right to bear arms. And good for them. If I were a resident of Kentucky, I would absolutely be burning up the phones, talking to my representatives, letting them know how I felt about this issue. You know, I have to agree. I think the Second Amendment should be all the permit we need. You know, shall not be infringed is pretty clear in its meaning, and I think that should actually be the law of the land. And this brings us to Roll Call's favorite segment, the self-defense shout-outs. For those of you who are new to the show or who have not stuck around to the end, self-defense shout-outs are not where I am reveling in the death or injury of the bad guy. It is, in fact, where I'm reveling in the good guy's ability to resist being killed or injured by the bad guy. I'm reveling in the fact that they had the means, method, and opportunity to defend themselves and the will to use it. So let's go ahead and get right into it. February 15, 2019, from the Tribunist. 3 armed teens attempt brazen daylight burglary, but the homeowner is armed too. Here's another case of a law-abiding citizen exercising his right to armed self-defense. In what seems to have been the daring daylight break-in, 3 armed teens kicked in the front door of a suburban house. They had their guns drawn like they were expecting trouble, and they found it. What happens next shows that the teens were anything but prepared. The incident occurred in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma on February 12th. The suburb of Tulsa is usually quiet. Break-ins are not uncommon, though, and it seems some of the residents are prepared. The video below, which I'm not going to show, caught the chaos. One teen can be seen delivering a flying kick to the front door. He quickly moves aside as the 2 others, guns drawn, step up. One of them cocks his pistol dramatically. Together, they push toward the front door. The homeowner was inside, though. Though he wishes to remain anonymous, he told reporters that he'd seen the 3 men standing in his driveway and saw that they had guns. At that point, he felt he was a target and got his own gun. The 3 teens did get the front door open, but only briefly. The sight of the homeowner and his gun sent them running. Most of them. One fell face first onto the concrete in his attempt to escape and was scrambling to get away. Cash McDonald, a neighbor, told reporters, "I was just inside listening to my Will Smith CD. Neighbors came out and said they heard gunshots. The shot fired by the homeowner struck the truck parked in the driveway. It is unclear where the teens fled to. Police are still hunting for them. This is a close-knit community, though, and the assailants were not wearing masks. Their identity will be discovered inevitably. Meanwhile, the homeowner is trying to figure out why he was targeted. He feels the teens might have thought he had money, but their motives are still a mystery." Well, their motives are because they're criminal scumbags, for one. And for two, didn't they learn from what happened in Broken Arrow last year? Yeah. I wouldn't be messing around if I lived there. People around there tend to take a dim view of home invaders.
I just want to know why they felt it relevant to mention that it was a Will Smith CD that the neighbor was listening to.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I mean, parents just don't understand.
Maybe they're in the pocket of Big Will.
That's what I was going to say, the pocket of the Fresh Prince and other shill out there.
Big Willie style?
That's it. You can't buy publicity like that, right? In this piece from February 13, 2019 in WBRZ, Sheriff, resident shot, killed intruder inside his trailer Wednesday morning. Gonzalez, one person is dead after an early morning shooting in Ascension Parish. Shortly before 3 a.m. Wednesday, deputies in the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office responded to a residence in the division on Black Locust Street in Gonzales. This would be in Louisiana. According to the Sheriff's Office, 20-year-old Major Payton entered a trailer and encountered the 60-year-old man who lived there. Sheriff Bobby Weber said both men fired shots. Payton was shot in the chest and died at the scene. The resident was shot in the stomach and taken to a local hospital for surgery. He is expected to recover. Authorities are currently looking for another suspect that may have fled the scene. The sheriff's office didn't immediately say whether the shooting would be ruled self-defense. Payton was previously arrested in 2016 for bringing a gun to Scotlandville High School. According to the advocate, Payton was a senior at the time and was apprehended after officials received a tip he'd hidden a .22 caliber handgun in his backpack. Yeah, Calaveras says actually you can buy publicity like that, referring to the Will Smith thing. The guy in Chicago paid people to attack him. Yeah, absolutely. I guess you're right. At any rate, there you have that. A gentleman had the ability to defend himself and kept his, while he didn't exactly prevent himself from suffering harm, he's still alive to tell his tale because he had a firearm. And last but not least, this absolutely not least, this story gives me a chuckle. 79-year-old woman calls alleged intruder punk, shoots him during a 911 call. From February 20th, a 79-year-old Jackson County, Georgia resident used a 911 call to report a home invasion, then fired a round and called the alleged intruder a punk while talking to the dispatcher. The incident occurred in Commerce, Georgia on February 12th, but the 911 was just released. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office issued a press release on the incident, describing it as a home invasion and burglary, which occurred shortly after noon. The 79-year-old woman heard someone trying to get in a window and then went to her back door to look out, at which time a black male was standing there. She warned the would-be intruder not to come into her home. She called 911 to report that the intruder was trying to get into her home. The 911 call recorded the woman saying, Come on up in here. I got something for you." 11 Alive reports the woman soon heard glass breaking and she told 911, "Come on, please." She warned the 911 dispatcher she had a gun and could now hear the intruder upstairs. The 911 call picked up the woman yelling upstairs to the intruder, "I'm waiting for you. If you come down those stairs, I'm going to blow your damn brains out." The woman fires another shot and yells, "Come on, punk. Come on down those stairs." The 911 dispatcher asked, "Ma'am, are you shooting at him again?" Jackson County Sheriff's deputies arrived and arrested 20-year-old Hans E. Rogers. He was charged with burglary and home invasion. So, you know, in both of the prior cases, we have an elderly person accosted by someone in their own home who's much younger than them, much more physically able than them. If those individuals hadn't had the firearm in order to even the odds, they would have stood absolutely no chance to keep those people from killing them and doing whatever they wanted. I gotta say though, I love how feisty the last lady was. That's a grandma that you don't want to mess with right there.
You know, she could have been posted all over the news since that's happened. She could have been on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all that kind of stuff. Instead of that human being that faked the racial attack. I'm not even going to say his name. You know his name. I'm tired of hearing it.
Sure.
But she should have been parades in her neighborhood. There should have been a government shutdown to celebrate that lady.
But that doesn't fit the agenda. And if it doesn't fit the agenda, it didn't happen.
Wait, you talking about the news guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Didn't he have a screwed up name anyhow? I don't want to hear it, but didn't he have some... It wasn't like a normal name like John Smith.
Yeah, that guy that's on Empire. Well, was on Empire. He got fired. They're writing him out. because, you know, felony charges and all that for being a stinking liar. Yeah. Okay, so there you have it. Self-defense shout-outs. They had the means, method, and opportunity to defend themselves, and they exercised their rights. And they are alive to tell the tale because of it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, roll up the sidewalks, put the awnings away. I want to thank everybody for coming by, both on the panel and in the chat. It is just amazing that you guys are willing to spend an hour listening to me go on about whatever has usually whatever's irritated me, but this week I tried to keep it a little bit more positive. You know, thanks. I very much appreciate it. Let's go ahead and go through and let the panel give their plugs or final words of wisdom. So, Kingpin, anything that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank everybody that's new in the YouTube chat for coming by, and make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Budget Guns and Gears Review. Tune in every Friday at 7 for the Right of the People. And go check out Rick's Life as I See It. He's got a giveaway going for 200 subs. And he's a really great guy. Does a show on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you support those channels.
All right. Squibload, any words of wisdom for us, sir?
Yeah, I'm amazed anybody would tune into this too.
Hey, thanks.
Hey, don't you people have something better to do with your... No, just... yeah, thanks for the invite, and another good show. Perfect timing, too. Break's over. Time to get back to work.
All right. Well, you enjoy that. I got to go do my nightly toil here in about an hour and a half, so yay. Out there in the chat on the YouTube side, again, thank you very much. I very much appreciate you spending this time with me. You know, especially if you live in Kentucky right now, you need to keep this in mind. You need to constantly be on your elected representatives and Congress critters, letting them know what you think. Hold their feet to the fire. You know, they should, when the phone rings and it shows your number, they should be going, geez, this guy again? They should know who you are. So that being said, keep on them, you know. Phone calls, emails, snail mails, telephone, telegraph, smoke signals, heliograph, carrier pigeons, semaphore. Do whatever you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight.